Each year, worldwide, over 250,000 pedestrians are killed in traffic. Millions of pedestrians are maimed or injured. Join us for the next half hour as we look for solutions on Perils for Pedestrians. On this episode, we look at traffic conditions in a St. Louis neighborhood. Then we learn about the Great Rivers Greenway District in St. Louis. The Grace Hill Settlement House seeks to reconnect North St. Louis to the Mississippi Riverfront. We meet an Americorps trail ranger on the Riverfront Trail. We meet a local fisherman along the trail. Finally, we travel to Vancouver to look at shrubbery blocking sidewalks. Stay tuned.
We're in St. Louis, Missouri, talking with Bob Carlson. What are traffic conditions like in your neighborhood?
Traffic conditions are variable. Most of it is civilized, but there are crazies, as there are anywhere else. I live on a one-way block here, and the street turns into two-way over there, but people drive the wrong way all the time, and there have been car chases going the wrong way at night, so always look both ways, even if you shouldn't have to. And we have alleys all over the place, too, going through between the major streets, and no speed limits there, so people often drive too fast, and we're invisible as pedestrians to them. So it's a risk every time you step outdoors.
What have your experiences been as a pedestrian trying to get around?
Well, I'm originally from San Francisco. The only time I ever got clipped was running to cross the street for a bus, and the guy either blended into the background or he came too fast, so my elbow and my knee got bashed up pretty good, but I was able to hobble away. I've had many, many really close calls here in St. Louis, though, and we might as well be invisible. Going with the green light, the little guy that lights up white, to tell you it's okay to walk. There are a couple of blocks we talked about earlier around here where people just make that right turn and they don't slow down or stop for pedestrians at all. A lot of us go down the alley and jaywalk to get to the grocery store, so we don't have to deal with that. And there'll be a whole line of cars doing their right turn thing and just going straight through. You're halfway out in the street, doesn't matter. You just have to jump back.
So the folks saying, well, always cross at the corner and so on and so forth, it actually can be safer to cross mid-block.
Yeah. Yes, it is. And I know it's technically not what you're supposed to be doing, but if you value your life, you're going to figure out your own survival strategy. And certain intersections, you don't try to do what you're supposed to because you don't want to be dead. It's that simple.
And the intersection design, you got the one near here where the right turn is just flying around.
Yeah. And they don't have a right turn arrow for themselves either. We've got the green, and they just go. Also, that intersection is problematic because that street is part of Highway 30, State Highway 30, which used to be part of Old Route 66. It originated here. And so that's run by the State Highway Department, or MoDOT, and not by the City Street Department. So you've got jurisdictional overlaps and, well, not so much overlaps, but conflicts. And that can be an excuse for each agency to do nothing,
You go farther down that street, do you have other issues?
There is an intersection just 4 blocks west of here where if you're a pedestrian trying to cross one street, you can see the lights to tell you whether it's safe to cross or not, if you've got the green and they've got the red. But if you're on the other side of the street trying to go the same direction, you can't see either street light. And then coming back the other way, it's the same thing but reversed. So you figure out pretty quickly which side of the street you want to be on so you can see if it's safe to go through that intersection on foot or not. Bad design, again, State Highway Department has jurisdiction on that one. So
Have you had pedestrian fatalities in this area?
We had one just back in February up near Tower Grove Park. It's just a couple of miles from here. Really beautiful park. People go there to walk their dogs all the time. And this nice 62-year-old lady with her dog was crossing with stop signs. And people run that stop sign all the time. And this drunk guy was speeding and ran the stop sign. She flew up into the air. The dog died on the scene. She died in the hospital the next day. The passenger was throwing empty beer cans out of the car. The guy ran off into the park. The cops found him the next day and arrested him. Released him later the same day without bail, and we still don't know exactly what the follow-up is going to be on that investigation. It's a little frustrating, I probably said hi to the woman because I used to live up that up that direction. I always carry some doggy biscuits with me, and I make friends wherever I go. So it's a little personalized when somebody that you might have said hi to is the victim, and the agency, the authorities aren't doing anything about it, apparently.
And it's a warm summer day today,
Yeah,
but
nice.
you also have winter here in the city. How does that change things?
Well, the snow plows tend to push the snow up to the point where it kind of obscures the sidewalk. You've got kind of a linear mound of snow. And when that all turns to ice during really cold conditions, you can be standing there and then trying to cross that just to get on the bus, and you're taking your life in your hands because it's so slippery. I walk with a cane sometimes because my knees are bad for, getting clipped by the car those years ago, and the other knee in an industrial accident. Even a cane doesn't make you visible to people, And even having that as a tripod kind of thing, 3 points of contact, trying to get over that mound of ice, just 5 feet, can be very dangerous. So, again, they don't bother to keep the sidewalks clear for us, and makes things challenging for those of us on foot.
And is this sort of a general problem with an attitude that pedestrians just don't matter? What's going on here?
It seems to be. Yeah, I don't know. Some of the people that live in parts of town grew up in the country and they moved to the city, and they learned to drive out there where there just really aren't any pedestrians. And so they haven't become aware yet that we require different driving habits here. And pedestrians, they're fair game, or they might as well just be jumping out of the way. They think they have the right of way. And it's just a mindset. It's problematic, but we have to deal with it if we want to survive. Don't care for it much, that's for sure.
And after you've walked a couple blocks down the alley, crossed mid-block to get to the grocery store, you think you're safe?
Nah. Parking lots. A few months ago, I was trying to leave the grocery store. I wheel the cart out as far as I can and then kind of park it next to this tree with a concrete circle around it. And I maybe sometimes have to repackage my bags if the bagger was inexperienced. Grab my bags, turn around, and take a couple of steps this way, and somebody trying to leave the grocery store. This guy was in a pickup truck, and he was driving really fast and then curves around and then wants to go over here to get to the driveway to get out onto the street. And I'm nearsighted. I have good peripheral vision. I saw this motion. I started stepping back before I even saw what was happening. And if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here talking to you right now. He did actually clip one of my grocery bags. And then he just stopped before turning onto the street, and he calls out his window, "Are you okay?" I said, "No." He just kept driving. None of my groceries were broken. I tried to convince the grocery store to maybe put a speed bump in there. And they thought it was a good idea, but, customers who drive hate speed bumps, right? We all know that. But would having a dead pedestrian customer who would never be coming back to shop there be something that looked very good on the record? Kind of hard to make that look like an achievement. So, yeah, you don't even have to be on the street. And in wintertime also, with the icy streets, people have been killed because somebody spins out and jumps the curb. So you always have to be vigilant when you're on foot.
We're in St. Louis, Missouri, talking with Todd Antoine with the Great Rivers Greenway District. What is the Great River Greenways District?
Great Rivers Greenway is a regional park district that was created by the voters back in 2000 in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County. It's about 1,200 square miles. We work with a lot of local park departments, jurisdictions around the region on creating a regional system of greenways, parks, and trails. So far, we've identified about 600 miles of a system that we're going to build over the next 20 to 30 years.
And where's the funding for all that come from?
It's a 1/10 of 1 cent sales tax that was collected by the voters back in 2000. So it generates about $20 million or so a year, of which Great Rivers Greenway gets half of that. So we get about $10 to $11 million a year. On top of that, we also have bonding capacity. So we can bond, which we've done. We've got about $30 million so far in bonds that we've done to extend the system out.
What can you accomplish with a dedicated source of funding like that?
Well, what it does is it allows us to leverage our dollars a lot, either through federal funds or with local and state funds to help build the system. We've been able to really get a lot of different grants for us in providing the local match, and it also helps us really get projects going on, get off the ground with local jurisdiction. So we've been very successful in getting about 100 miles or so built so far in the last 10 years.
What does the system look like? I mean, what different components are going into it that it's going to make the system?
Well, we have trail standards and all of that, but it really depends because the region is so diverse. We've got urban conditions where we're in an urban situation in a densely packed neighborhood, to being out in the middle of a very rural area, to areas where we're in a growing suburban community. And so we're really sort of looking at how we develop the system in terms of its locality, but it really comes off as making sure that once you're on the system, you kind of have the same experience, no matter if you're in the inner city, you're in the suburbs, or out on the far rural areas.
Who uses your trail? If we went out there on a nice day, who are we going to see out there?
Well, you'll see a lot of different folks use it for transportation purposes. You'll see folks using it for just getting out for recreation. We actually conduct trail counts every summer, and we've been showing over the last 4 years that we've been doing trail counts, increased usage of double-digit growth on our trail system for folks that are using it. And we check and look at it, and so we can see what folks are commuting and also who are using it more for recreation too. So, but it's just, you see a lot of folks using it to get access to a nearby library, getting to some of our light rail stations we have connections to, that folks will use the trail to make that connection to get over to the light rail station as well.
So, the walking and biking on your transportation network then hooks up with the rest of the transportation network.
Yeah, no, I think we really try to coordinate with Metro, which is our regional transit authority, as well as with Missouri Department of Transportation and other local jurisdictions, to really try to coordinate transportation as best as possible. Because obviously, if we can try to use our system to leverage the transportation usage to connect to light rail, to the buses, allowing people to get that mode share off from single vehicle drive, all folks driving, and getting folks out there walking and biking as much as possible.
So you've identified, the huge network you hope to eventually get built. How long is build-out going to take till you feel that you're substantially complete?
Well, if we look at in the first 10 years that we've gotten 100 miles done, and we've got a 600-mile system. So I'm thinking it's going to, theoretically, we'll have a substantial part of the system built probably in the next 30 years. It's going to be those really hard, challenging, difficult projects that are going to just take the longer time. And I think that might just take another 10 to 20 years after that. So I think within at least 2 generations, we'll have a whole system built out. I think you'll see significant progress, though, made just over the next 20 years.
We're in St. Louis talking with Doug Eller. Who do you work for?
I work for Grace Hill Settlement House, and I'm the director of community initiatives there.
What is Grace Hill Settlement House?
Well, there's many settlement houses over the United States, and they all pretty much started in the early 1900s as a way to help immigrants acclimate into the mainstream of the United States, and they continue on today, working with low-income populations in depressed areas and low-income areas throughout the United States.
So where are we standing right now?
Now we're on the banks of the mighty Mississippi in North St. Louis City, and we're just within a stone's throw of the North Riverfront Trail, which is a premier biking trail that goes from the Arch, which St. Louis is known for, to the old Chain of Rocks Bridge, which is the longest pedestrian bike bridge in the world. And so it's a wonderful trail, and it brings tourism into North St. Louis City.
So what's the connection between this trail and the community you work with?
Well, we have an Americorps program, the Americorps Trail Rangers, and they actually manage the Riverfront Trail. And so we're talking about young adults from the community, African American communities that come out to the Riverfront Trail provide services to bikers and rollerbladers and pedestrians, as well as maintain the trail, and they do a lot of native habitat restoration, a lot of volunteer coordination, and it's really a way that raises the standard of living in North St. Louis City. People have access to this riverfront trail. They can bike, learn more about the environment. Even though it's a narrow green strip along here in a heavily industrialized urban area, we have fox, coyote, deer, bald eagles in the wintertime, wild turkey. So it's really a great environmental testing and lesson ground for people in the community to learn about wildlife and the environment, and to also recreate. And then we are looking for various entrepreneurial opportunities for people then to capitalize over the tourism that come here as well.
What's the walk like for someone trying to walk from the neighborhood down here to the riverside?
Well, it's restricted. There's one major road that it remains that connects the river to the community, one in all of North St. Louis City. So it's pretty much that road that you have to go down in order to get here. And even that road has its challenges where it's pretty industrialized. It's heavily used by big drayage trucks, and they're kind of sloppy in the way that they handle the materials that they carry. There's not a lot of investment here for the road itself. We are in a process, the community, to put our foot forward and insist that there's going to be some, and has been, some planning to make that Branch Street, which is the name of the street that I'm talking about, actually be something that's inviting and accommodating to pedestrians and bikers. So the city's behind us. We've talked to the Planning Commission. There is a coordinated plan with the other plans that are occurring down here in this area. And it'll happen that Branch Street is going to be in a much improved area for people to use to connect from the community down to the Riverfront Trail and to the Mississippi, which is really the root of why we're all here in St. Louis to begin with.
How important is it to revitalizing a neighborhood to do things like improve Branch Street?
Well, improving Branch Street is everything. I mean, that's really going to be our economic connection between the river, as well as the standard of living increase connection between the river and the resources down here, the Riverfront Trail, and the community. And so it's really important that that happens. In fact, if we haven't already been part of the use of Branch Street, it very well could have already been vacated and used for an expansion of some sort of industry, and there wouldn't have been any connection at all. So there has been a concerted neighborhood effort in order to continue to clean Branch Street, to bring people down here. We have an environmental justice grant from the EPA in order to bring some attention to Branch Street, and we've been successful with that with bike rides and this planning process that I've been telling you about. And so anyway, it's definitely going to happen that we're going to have an improved street, and you're definitely going to have to come back in about 2-3 years and see the differences that occur.
We're in St. Louis talking with Tiasha Howard. Who do you work for?
I work for Grace Hill Settlement House, Americorps.
What is Americorps?
Americorps is a program that was started in 1994, and they have all different type of service organizations throughout the United States.
What's your connection with the river trail here?
Okay, my connection is Grace Hill Settlement House actually has 2 Americorps programs. One is the Settlement House, where they do different neighborhood activities, and then I am a part of the Trail Ranger program. And our project is to maintain 12 miles of the Riverfront Trail.
What's involved in maintaining a trail?
Okay, that is a very interesting question. We actually come out and we do maintenance on the trail. We come out and we clean the trail. We do trash pickups. We try to eradicate the invasive species that come in and choke out the native plant life here on the trail. We give tours of the trail. We provide information, rest stops. We have maps. We have a visitor center where bikers can come in and get water, use the restroom. They can do minor bike repairs. They can actually rent a bike, or not really rent because they don't have to pay anything. They are free, but they can come and get a bike to use on the trail. So we provide a lot of services.
So what programs do you have out in the neighborhoods?
Okay, we actually do have an educational program that we do half of the year, where we go to schools and community centers where we provide volunteer services to different community programs that are going on. We educate the children on the need to preserve the natural plant life in St. Louis on the Riverfront Trail specifically. We do a Black History educational program in the schools and different arenas. We provide a Mary Meacham celebration on the trail every year.
Who is Mary Meacham? What did she do?
Okay, Mary Meacham was the wife of John Berry Meacham, who started the first African American church west of the Mississippi. And when he died, he was an activist in the Underground Railroad. And so when he died, she kind of took over his position. And so she helped organize a runaway that involved some slaves of Henry Shaw, who was the founder of Shaw's Garden here in St. Louis. And so they ran a couple miles this way down the trail, and they were trying to get to the Illinois side because Illinois was a free state, and they were met on the Illinois side and captured. 2 got away, but the rest were returned to slavery. And the slave that belonged to Henry Shaw was returned, and her children were sold away from her. And Mary Meacham was actually arrested, even though she wasn't there, for having her house be used for an Underground Railroad site.
What sort of connection do you see between the neighborhood and the trail? How does the trail benefit the neighborhood?
Oh, the trail benefits the neighborhood immensely because there is so much history that people have no idea of, especially as far as the riverfront and going into North St. Louis, because as the city of St. Louis grew, it grew that way first. So a lot of our first and a lot of our important early history is located from the riverfront to the north side. So it's really important for them to come down and get connected to that history and to learn these things and to learn what makes St. Louis so significant and so important.
We're in St. Louis talking with Willie Pruitt. What brings you down to the river here?
I started coming down here. I'm 31 now. I was around 9 the first time I started coming down here, fishing along the trail from the Arch all the way up to Chandler Rocks Bridge. I'm fishing with my father and other cousins and things like that. So I come here probably, when I was younger, probably like twice a week we're down here fishing somewhere.
So is this something a lot of your friends and neighbors did, not just your cousins?
Oh yeah, pretty much everybody we knew fished somewhere down the trail. It wasn't a trail then, it wasn't even paved then, I don't believe. It was just rocks and gravel, and we found the way to the float wall to come down here and fish when they had it open.
It's a little easier now that the trail's here?
Easier and a little hard because sometimes you got to worry about hitting the bikers, so you got to kind of go certain spots that actually get better for driving than others. But it is a lot easier with the pavement. At least you know now if something happens, people can come down here and help you out. Before it was kind of really wild down here.
So how's the fishing?
Fishing is always good down here, believe it or not. It's really underfished. A lot of people go to the lakes and like the couple of dams around here, but the best fishing is actually from the Arch or Chandler Rocks Bridge on the trail.
We're in North Vancouver talking with Dave Perfett. What's the problem with this beautiful hedge behind us?
Well, I find a hedge, and I also find what's behind the hedge is the mindset of people. That a lot of people think there's enough room for a pedestrian to pass on the sidewalk with the hedge the way it is, with the slight encroachment. And that is good for single file pedestrians. But often the case, there's somebody with a baby stroller or bags of groceries or other things, which, there's not enough room for 2 people to pass in that circumstance. So the hedge is planted on the road allowance or the city property, and on a busy road, I find, which is also bad, it's usually quite a pattern that people will grow bigger hedges and vegetation because they want to pretend that the busy road's not there. But pedestrians are also more in need of a proper space on a busier road. And so in this case here, it has been narrowed down. Yes, we can walk on the grass, but I don't really believe the frontage owners have the right to encroach and take over the public's road allowance and take away transportation space that should be dedicated for pedestrians. And as you can see, the city already has invested in a good asset, a sidewalk here, and it's only one half usable.
And would it be enough just to have the hedge back at the edge of the sidewalk, or do pedestrians actually need more space than that?
Yes, I do need more space. In the transportation world, it's known as shy distance. It's where the transportation mode might spill over a little bit more space than what they need, wriggle room, so to speak. And in the case of a sidewalk, people's feet are quite narrow, and then your shoulders are wider. And then, of course, if I'm holding on to something, then it's even that little bit more. So if two pedestrians were to pass oncoming in this location, there wouldn't be enough room for that. In this part of the world, in the Pacific Northwest, we get a lot of rainfall, and it's a little bit rainy, and we're lucky that we're not getting rained on during this interview. It's very gray out. But, of course, this hedge that's higher than myself, or yourself, and you're a tall person, that, we brush against it, then we get wet, and that's not, very fair for the pedestrians to have to be forced into a wet hedge on a rainy day.
So about, if you were writing a standard for sidewalks, how much shy distance would you leave for pedestrians? How far back would you put the edge of that hedge?
Well, I think about 18 inches or about 50 centimeters would be good. In Canada, I'm going with centimeters, but realizing that we still use some inches, or understand both ways. And that should be on both sides. And that should be any other kind of obstacles. There can be street lights and other things too. But the vegetation is something that homeowners usually plant, or the city doesn't maintain. Most cities require the frontage owner to maintain the frontage on the road allowance. So it's not really on the taxpayer's burden. It's up to the frontage owner to keep the property from getting unkempt.
So, homeowners along here, they could have the same nice hedge, just a little farther away from the sidewalk.
That's right. But what they've done is sort of, by the big hedge like this, that's a hedge row or a wall, they've sort of increased the side of their property by pushing out the physical boundary. The legal boundary is set back in. And like I was saying earlier, that because this road is a minor arterial and a bit busy and noisy, I do find that a mindset on busier roads that people sort of push out and put a big wall, and it's sort of like denying the elephant in the room. I've read some studies where people think the vegetation attenuates noise, but it doesn't really attenuate the noise. It just gets in the way of pedestrians more.
Visit us on the internet at www.pedestrians.org.